All right. So we've been kind of going back and forth with doing some days of practicing mindfulness, some days more focus on self-compassion. Um, Last week we were focusing more on safety, um, safety in movements and kind of micro movements and just making little shifts. Yeah, I think we talked about like Mario Kart. The one mistake you can make on Mario Kart that always is so hard is like the overcorrection, right? You're getting off and then you kind of overcorrect and go on the other side, and that tends to just lead to just fill in chaos. You know, things get chaotic, um, and how that's really similar to us, to humans, to our psychology, to our inner working, as we tend to overcorrect. Like, I don't like this thing, so I can't have it. You know, it's like, whoa, you know, like we go way over, or, um, you know, start talking about compassion. Well, I can't do that, right? We overcorrect. Okay, yeah. But like, can we inch our way? Can we just take a little subtle movement that direction? Yeah. And so part of this is to help us go. Okay, so how can we start to approach compassion in this way too? Um, Not necessarily overcorrecting, but instead um, how to start the process. You notice how I'm saying start and the process, not how to be, but to start the process of maybe bringing some kindness towards you. So that more the yin properties or the yang properties, which is more about self-protection, preservation, resource gathering, boundaries. Yeah. And so uh, I know one of the quintessential questions that we ask in this realm is, what are you needing right now? Yeah. Um, Let me explain that for a second, because um, when that first got introduced to me, I was like, I don't know what I need. What the heck are you talking about? And maybe you don't know. That's okay to not know. It's just a question to start asking yourself. So the overcorrection is, I don't know what I need. I need to know. Right? I'm struggling with this. I have to do. No, like, okay. Like, I don't know what I need. Can I stop here, maybe hit the brake and start asking that question and stay on the other side of the road? Don't need to yank the wheel all the way over. Yeah. And so part of this I'm asking you is to start to notice your approach to this of like, are you yanking yourself from one side of the road to the other? And if so, know that that's natural. That's what we do as humans. Like, we will do that. Um, and it's also probably not very effective or helpful. So, so why am I saying this? Because I think it's really important to know what it is that you need in certain moments. I think it's also hard to figure out what those things are. So, um, and in different moments, it's different. If you're feeling anxious, maybe what you need is some reassurance. You know, if you're feeling crazy, maybe what you need is some validation. You know, am I the only, we always say, am I the only one who sees this? No, you're probably not. You're the only one that's activated, maybe, or other people are activated and numbing or doing their own thing. But oftentimes we are having responses to this. Yeah. When we're feeling, we're beating ourselves up, what do we need? I don't know. Some people might need to hear, like, you know, um, some loving kindness phrases like, hey, I'll get through this, and you can do this. Or, maybe it's recognizing, things that you're grateful for, or whatnot. So there's different kind of needs that we have, emotional needs, depending on the situation, the emotion, and our history with whatever it is that we're struggling with. You know? For example, um, uh, let's say feeling fearful about finances. That's a common one. We can all probably go, okay, that's a universal thing. At some point, at one point or another, there's fear around there. Um, so there might be some needs that we can all share, like maybe some reassurance could feel good, like, you know, um, you're gonna figure this out. You've got this, and um, you know, uh, that kind of thing. Maybe your history with it is one based more off of fear than actuality. So maybe, if it's always worked out for you, maybe it's like just recognizing, hey, it has always worked out for me. I need to recognize that, yeah. But maybe you come from a different place. Maybe it hasn't worked out. Maybe there was more, times where you were paycheck to paycheck or struggling in different ways, or, you know, worse, not able to afford basic living. And if that's the case, maybe the need there is to remind yourself, I'm not there anymore. I'm here, right? Like, so sometimes we need different things based on our history, based on the emotion and the situation that's currently happening. So I thought it might be an interesting thing to kind of go through some of the emotions, um, and kind of focus on different emotions, and what kind of exploring those, like, some of the basic, there's usually 5 of like happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and maybe kind of going through those and starting to ask ourselves, what do we need when we're experiencing each individual emotion? Sometimes we'll have all the emotions at once, and that's a harder question to ask, and maybe one to answer. A lot of times that's representative of when we're triggered about something, meaning it's like a kind of related to a traumatic event in our lives, or we're feeling overwhelmed. And so maybe that question, what do I need right now, it's too big. Maybe what you need is some grounding, some ability to be present for a little bit before you're able to ask yourself that. Yeah. But we can, sometimes we just experience 5 emotions all at once. And just because there's those 5 basic emotions doesn't mean that captures all emotions. Those are just the very basic. And then they overlap, and there's different variations and intensities and so forth. But if we can start to map out and go, okay, when I'm feeling fear, this is helpful. This is what I need. This is what this part of me needs. Then when you are feeling fearful, maybe you can provide that to yourself. Yeah? And same with all the other emotions. So the other thing is, again, what is it that we need? It's whatever your system, whatever you, it kind of provides a balm to you, and you can go, like, when we're feeling fear, think about it on like a 0 to 10 scale, 0 being just like a neutral or just 0 fear, 10 being like complete and utter fear, the most you could have ever, panic, you name it, overwhelm. And when we're experiencing higher levels of that, when we're at kind of more of those, the 10, what is it that, is that, because fear was meant from a biological level to help us flee, leave something to be safe. So if we're at a 10, that's life or death. That's what that represents in our body. This is life or death. Yeah? So what are we needing in a moment we're feeling fear when there isn't life or death? That's what we're asking ourselves, yeah? It's not like it's because we're hurting and we're suffering in that moment. Because if you were feeling fear and you're like running for your life, there's not a lot of suffering in that. It's pain, right? It's like, you don't even think, it's just you go and you do, and it is what it is. Whereas when we're not in a life or death situation, we're feeling that intense fear, it feels somehow bad. Yeah. It feels different. It feels more of that suffering piece. Because it's not necessarily proportionate to the experience. It's not matching. Yeah. Fear is one I use because it tends to be one that we do misconstrue the current situation to be life or death. I can't tell you how many people, including myself, can convince you that their situation right now is life or death when it's not. I mean, we could probably all do it, right? So just pick something in your life that you'd be like, it's just awful and it's life or death. We can do that when we take a step back and go, okay, is this really life or death? Most of the time it's not. I know when I was at the VA, I used to have colleagues that, or even people like people that work for me. So when I was a supervisor, they would, Brandon, blah, 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 we gotta do that. And they're like, just, so panicky. And I'd be like, okay, just so you know, like, this isn't life or death. Like, if we don't get that appointment in on time, it will be okay. The person will still be seen. We're good. Even if the person can't be seen, it's still not life or death, unless it is life or death. If the person is bleeding out right now, yes, which we're psychologists, we don't have to do that. Or if there's imminent danger, yes. But besides those two areas, it's not life or death. But we treat it life or death, and that's what creates stress, and it's our perception of it, that this thing has to be done in the way we treat it, that we then start to panic. So in that moment, the question is, what do you need right now to help you see that it's going to be okay, or that it's not so scary, or that it's not life or death, or any iteration of this? Yeah, that's the question. What are you needing? And we're going to focus on fear today because I think it's a one that we can all probably relate to. I know we can all relate to it because it's a human emotion. But let's look at it. So when you're feeling fear, right? Like you want to escape, you want to flee, you want to, something's really scary. Yeah. What is it that you're experiencing? Yeah. So sometimes we need to be aware of, what are my thoughts telling me? What's the story I'm telling myself? What's happening in my body? Yeah. So let's, and I'll go through that in a minute. And then after we do that, we can kind of go, okay, this is what's happening. What's my way in here? What is the thing that I need to create a little bit of distance from this, or a balm here, or just so it's not so intense? Yeah. So let's bring up, an example. So we're feeling fear, and let's say the fear is about a family event that's coming up, because family events are coming up soon, so let's use that. It's that time of the year. So there's a family event, and what happens? We start telling ourselves stories, right? We start to feel this maybe dread going there. We know we don't like it. There might be, I want to avoid this. If you use substances, there might be, I'll just drink myself, or I'll smoke myself, whatever it is. I don't want to deal with it. There might be trying to isolate. I don't want to be around anybody. Yeah. So sometimes our behavior and kind of our focus can be on the things we want to use to avoid it. And if we turn towards, okay, this family event coming up, and if you're like, no, I'm totally cool, like there's no fear with my family, think about something else, like something that might be, some people it's buying the right present for somebody. It brings up panic of like, I don't know which present to buy, or sometimes it's, the turning of the year creates dread for people. So we're just kind of looking, and I'm using dread as kind of synonymous with fear. They're not. They're a bit different, but I think we can work with that. So if we look at that, we're buying into some story about what's going to happen. Yeah, our body's also reacting based off of history with whatever people there is, which makes sense because we've experienced stuff. That's our programming. And then we have the story. You know? And then what? What else is happening? What's happening in the body? With fear, think about how you experience fear. A lot of times we don't even want to be in our body when we're experiencing fear. So it's a lot of rumination, a lot of kind of getting caught up in some of those stories, trying to fix them, solve them, make them different, figure out anything else I can do other than that thing. Yeah, trying to really intellectualize it maybe. If we go into our body, sometimes we're feeling like our heart pounding, might feel like a lot of heat or discomfort, chest might be tightening, harder to breathe, maybe heaviness. So when those are happening, again, what is it that you're needing? So sometimes what you're needing is, I just need to feel grounded right now, or a sense of safety might be it, So can you, we can only identify that though by going, okay, this is what this thing is. Let me turn towards it. What am I experiencing? And can we meet it at the thought level? What is it that you need to hear maybe on the thought level that would help? Is it that you're going to be okay? This is going to be a struggle, and I've got you. I'm here for myself. Maybe that's what I need to hear. Is it more at the physiological level of like, I just need to take some deep breaths and ground myself and just feel like I'm here and I'm not somewhere else, Okay, I'm going to do that. Yeah, maybe I need some meditation or some yoga, or I need to go for a run, whatever that might be. I have so much energy. And so that's why, we're talking about what is it that we need, is because we want to look at all these little aspects, which is kind of makes up an emotion, and sometimes, it's the story or perception is what we call it sometimes. Yeah. Our perception of the thing. Sometimes it is, no, you're going into this really tough situation. What do you need so it's not so hard? Like, for example, if you go into a situation with your family and I'm going to be gaslit. That's what they do. They gaslight me. Nobody has a family that does that, right? Nobody else, yeah. It's a pretty common, unfortunate piece about being in a group of people is there can be a group think, and some people, gaslight, whether that's intentional or unintentional. If that's the case, maybe what you need is to show up for yourself and remind yourself, they're gaslighting, and I'm not going to engage in it. I'm going to call it in for myself and name it. And that is what I need to do. That's what I need right now. It's just to acknowledge it. So this is the power of going towards what's bothering us and going, okay, what is it within this, especially with fear, that I'm needing right now? And I hope what you're getting out of this is that it's more complex than one answer, and that it is a moment-to-moment thing, and that a lot of times we have themes, meaning if something works once, it might be something that's helpful for us in the future, for me, so a lot of times I need to hear that it's going to be okay. The reason I might just have verbal diarrhea when I'm anxious about something to my wife is because I just want to hear it's going to be okay. And guess what? Sometimes I never hear it. Not that she's not going to say it. I didn't actually ask for it because I didn't know what I needed. And knowing I need it, I can either ask from her or let myself know that it's going to be okay. Yeah. It's part of my programming that it's not going to be okay, and it's going to be bad, and it's going to right? So I need to be able to acknowledge it for me. Yeah. And then if my wife's not around or she's with the kids, I can offer that to myself. So, again, and yours might be different than that. So it is based off of a variety of different factors, and let's we'll explore it a little bit today. Okay. Yeah. So let's explore this and do a meditation with it and see what we come up with. let's also recognize overcorrecting and see if you even notice yourself right now trying to overcorrect. I'm like, I gotta change it. It's like, okay, so let's slow down. We just need to inch our way towards, maybe right now it's just understanding the concept. It's not even applying it. It's, hey, I just today I'm going to focus on being open to what my needs could be. That's great. That would be awesome. Yeah. Overcorrecting is, I got to understand this completely. And it's got to be perfect, or, it just won't be. And that's okay. We just need an in here. Yeah. So, with that said, we're going to meditate with this. So feel free to shift in whatever ways you'd like to kind of move to in a cushion, seated in your chair, whatever you'd like. You're welcome to have cameras on, off. Yeah. Feeling free to lie down, sit, whatever is calling you right now. And starting by taking a few deep breaths in and out. And then allowing the breath to become natural, finding its own rhythm. If you haven't done so already, you're welcome to close the eyes if you'd like to, or leave them open. And spending some time connecting with the present moment. We're all coming from different things today, different activities, from different spaces and places and emotional experiences. Everything I just talked about may or may not be stirring things up inside. So wherever we're at, as best we can, I'm going to start from maybe a present place, a relatively neutral place of the breath. Noticing where the mind is at, and if it's off the breath, that's okay. Remember, this is what minds do. And gently, intentionally escorting the focus back to the sensations of breathing, back to the breath. Maybe checking in with yourself, noticing in those kind of circles of tolerance where you're at, like, are you feeling currently safe, maybe a bit challenged, emotionally, or an overwhelm. And if you find yourself in overwhelm right now or at any point in this practice, the most important thing you can do is whatever helps you get back to that sense of safety. This might mean staying with the breath for a while, letting my instructions just kind of go right past you. This might mean introducing some mindful movement if that's something that you connect with. Maybe using an external object to feel grounded. If you find yourself in the maybe safe or challenged realms, and acknowledging where in the challenge realm you might be. If you're heading towards the border of overwhelm, then as best you can, maybe making a decision to focus on safety today. Grounding, centeredness. Only if you're feeling like in the safe or challenge zones and there's some room there to explore. Only if that's the case, then engaging with the rest of my instructions. Otherwise, it won't really make sense or be very helpful. And it'd be kind of counter to really asking yourself what you need, because in this moment, if you're feeling highly challenged, almost in overwhelm or overwhelmed, then it sounds like what you may need is to come back to safety. So if you can give that to yourself. If you can't give it to yourself, then know that I'm giving you permission to do that. If permission doesn't sound like a good word, then maybe my direction is focus on safety. So, in a moment, if you're in the safe or just somewhat challenged zones, we're going to bring in maybe a situation that's either currently happening or about to happen, not something that is a 10 out of 10. It's something that might be just maybe under a 5, just kind of somewhat distressing but not overwhelming, and something that there's some fear. Maybe it's experienced as hesitation or even a not wanting to go or something like that. The situation, maybe it's a family get-together or something that's happening at work or something else that you can bring up. And we're going to explore this for a little bit. So let yourself kind of bring in some of the, maybe invite in what the situation is. If the situation doesn't really bring up any feeling in the body, and there's really not a lot of fear, if it's like a 1 or a 2, maybe choose a different situation. And likewise, if it's a 8, 9, or 10, maybe choose a different situation. As you bring the situation to mind, maybe notice and be curious, like, what's the felt sense in the body? What comes up? What do you feel in anticipation of this? If there are multiple feelings, see if you can kind of narrow in on the fearful part. What might be causing some part of you to feel scared in some way. And see if you can identify where in the body you feel this, what it feels like. If you're not sure, maybe start scanning the body, being curious. Remembering there's no right or wrong way to feel here. Whatever you're feeling is perfectly fine. And notice if there's any stories about what the mind is telling you will happen or won't happen or has happened. See if you can be curious about it, maybe even labeling it. There's the story. Now, pondering the question. And when I say pondering, meaning lightly hold the question in awareness. What do I need right now? What would help this not be so painful? Provide some balm in this moment? Some distance or objectivity here? When you ask this, you might be curious about different areas. What do you need at the physiological level? What does your body need? What do you need at the emotional level? What does the part of you that maybe is scared or feeling fear, what does that part need? Maybe some sort of touch, something verbal, maybe hearing something from you. What do you need at the thought level? And don't worry too much about having a need for each of these areas, physiological or body, emotional, thought. Just using these as ways to explore here. If anything has come up that feels like, that could be a little bit of a balm, and see if you can give that to yourself, whatever it is that you need. Not to make it go away, not to even make it different, just to help with the suffering. If all it does is ease tension from a higher end tension to a lower end tension, then can that be enough? If you're struggling with what you might need, then maybe imagining someone whom you trust. This can be a friend, a coworker, a family member, somebody you admire or respect. And what could they offer you that maybe you need to hear right now? Again, not to solve it or get rid of it, simply to buffer, to help provide just a bit of ease here. And if something has come up that feels like a bit of a balm, then maybe offering this to yourself. And if, as you've gone through today's practice, that maybe nothing came up when you've kind of wondering, pondering, what do I need? If you're unsure, maybe remind yourself that this is a difficult question, one in which we're not used to asking ourselves or being asked. And that simply asking the question is really the first step here to understanding and finding a bit of an answer. That you are on a process of discovery. And through being curious and present, that you may start to answer this question with time. Maybe what that part of you needs right now is to give the luxury of time. Doesn't need to be all solved right now. I've got time. And so now, letting go of whatever you might be focusing on and just staying present in the body, just being here in this moment. And as you're ready, slowly and gently, ending this practice. If you'd like to, maybe honoring it in some way.